What if I told you that the most powerful beings in all of heaven aren't the angels you think you know? Tonight, as you drift off to sleep, you'll discover the complete story of the Seraphim, the six-winged creatures so holy that they must cover their faces in God's presence, so powerful that their voices shake the foundations of heaven itself. From their mysterious origins to their divine purpose, we'll uncover every detail about these magnificent beings that stand closest to the throne of the Almighty. So get comfortable, close your eyes, and let me take you on a peaceful journey through the most awe-inspiring story in all of Scripture. But before we dive in, if you're new to this channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button if this type of content helps you unwind. Also, let us know where you're watching from and what time it is. So without further ado, let's begin, shall we? A young man named Isaiah stands in the temple. The year is around 740 before Christ. King Uzziah has just died and the kingdom feels uncertain. Isaiah comes to pray, perhaps to seek guidance in these troubled times. Then something extraordinary happens. The veil between earth and heaven tears open. Isaiah finds himself witnessing something no mortal was meant to see: the throne room of the Almighty. Smoke fills the sacred space, not the choking smoke of earthly fires, but something different. This smoke carries the weight of holiness itself. It moves like living breath, swirling around pillars that stretch beyond sight. The very air seems thick with presence. Above the smoke, a throne, but Isaiah cannot describe the one who sits upon it. The glory is too bright, too overwhelming. Instead, he sees what surrounds the throne: beings of incredible beauty and terror. 6 wings each, faces that burn with inner light, voices that could shatter mountains. These are the Seraphim. They hover around the throne in perfect formation, not standing, not sitting, but existing in that space between earth and sky. Their wings move in rhythm, creating currents in the holy smoke. Each movement is worship, each breath is praise. The sound they make fills everything. It starts low, like distant thunder, then it builds. 3 voices become 6, then countless more. The words echo from every corner of the infinite throne room. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. The temple shakes, not from earthquake or storm, but from the power of pure worship. The doorposts tremble at their voices. The foundations of heaven itself vibrate with each note. This is music that existed before the first star was lit. Songs that will continue after the last light fades. Isaiah covers his face. The sight is too much for human eyes, yet he cannot look away. Through his fingers, he watches these beings of fire dance around the throne. They move with purpose, with joy, with reverence that puts all earthly worship to shame. The smoke grows thicker. The singing grows louder. Isaiah realizes he is witnessing something that has been happening since before time began. This worship, this song, this dance of the seraphim around the throne of God, it never stops. It never grows old. It never loses its power to shake the very pillars of creation. In this moment, Isaiah understands something profound. He is seeing the heart of all existence, the center around which everything else revolves, the source from which all light and life flows. And guarding this source, worshiping this presence, are these incredible beings with 6 wings and voices like burning gold. The vision will change Isaiah forever. But for now, he simply watches. He breathes in the holy smoke. He lets the song of the seraphim wash over him like waves of liquid fire. He witnesses the eternal dance that happens just beyond the edge of human sight. This is where our story begins. In the throne room of heaven, where smoke and song and 6-winged beings surround the source of all that is holy, where the seraphim have sung their endless song since before the morning stars were born. What is a seraph? The word itself holds mystery. Seraph. In Hebrew, it sounds like wind through fire. The plural, seraphim, carries even more weight. These are not just angels. They are something more specific, more intense. Break the word apart and you find its roots in the ancient Hebrew language. Seraph means to burn. Not the destructive burning of wildfire, but the purifying burn of precious metals in the refiner's fire. The burn that removes impurities and leaves only what is pure and precious behind. Some scholars trace the word even deeper. They find connections to an ancient root that means to be noble or to be elevated. Others point to links with serpentine imagery, suggesting these beings move with fluid grace, like flames dancing in the wind. But the most common understanding remains simple and profound. Seraphim are the burning ones. They are creatures of living fire, beings whose very essence is flame. Not flame that destroys, but flame that purifies, illuminates, and transforms. In ancient times, fire held different meanings than it does today. Fire was life. Fire was warmth on cold nights. Fire was the force that turned raw grain into nourishing bread. Fire was protection from wild beasts. Fire was the power that melted metals and shaped tools. Fire was also mystery. It seemed alive, dancing and flickering with its own will. It could appear from nothing and vanish just as quickly. It reached toward heaven as if trying to return to its source among the stars. The ancients saw fire as a bridge between earth and sky. Smoke carried their prayers upward. Flames consumed their offerings and transformed them into something pleasing to the divine. Fire was the element that could touch both worlds, the seen and the unseen. So when the prophet calls these beings the burning ones, he is saying something profound about their nature. They are creatures who exist at the intersection of earthly and divine. They are living flames that burn with the pure fire of heaven itself. This fire does not consume them. Instead, it is their life, their essence, their joy. They are not burned by the flames because they are the flames. They dance in the fire because they are fire dancing. They sing with voices of flame because their very beings are songs made of light and heat. The word seraph appears in other places in Hebrew scripture, but rarely with this same meaning. Sometimes it refers to fiery serpents in the desert, sometimes to figures of judgment and purification. But in Isaiah's vision, the word takes on its most elevated meaning. Here, seraphim are not just burning ones. They are the burning ones who surround the throne of the Most High. They are fire that has learned to worship, flame that has been given wings and voice and purpose. They are what happens when the pure essence of divine fire takes on form and consciousness and love. Their name tells us everything we need to know about their nature. They burn, but they are not consumed. They give light, but they also receive it from the source of all light. They are heat and warmth and energy, but also beauty and music and perfect devotion. In calling them seraphim, Isaiah gives us a word that captures something essential about the divine nature itself. God is described throughout Scripture as consuming fire, as light that no darkness can overcome, as the one whose glory shines brighter than the sun. The seraphim embody this fiery aspect of the divine. They are living expressions of God's burning holiness, creatures who exist to reflect and magnify the blazing purity of their Creator. Angels, but not like the others. Heaven has its hierarchies, its orders and ranks and different kinds of servants. The seraphim stand apart from them all, unique in their closeness to the divine throne. Consider the cherubim first. These mighty beings appear throughout Scripture as guardians and protectors. They guard the way back to Eden with flaming swords. They oversee the mercy seat on the Ark of the Covenant. They appear in Ezekiel's visions as creatures with 4 faces and 4 wings, carrying the throne of God through the heavens. Cherubim are associated with God's justice and protection. They are warriors and guardians, fierce in their devotion to divine law. Their role is to protect what is holy from what is profane, to guard the boundaries between the sacred and the common. Then there are the archangels. Michael the warrior, Gabriel the messenger, Raphael the healer. These are angels with names and specific duties. They interact with human beings, delivering messages, fighting battles, guiding and protecting. They bridge the gap between heaven and earth, carrying out divine will in the realm of mortals. The thrones mentioned by Paul are another order entirely. These beings are associated with divine judgment and authority. They carry out the justice of God, ensuring that divine law is upheld throughout creation. They are stability and order, the foundation upon which divine government rests. But the seraphim are different. They do not guard. They do not fight. They do not deliver messages or carry out judgments. Their role is simpler and more profound. They worship. They surround the throne of God and sing his praises without ceasing. Where other angels have missions that take them throughout creation, the seraphim remain in the immediate presence of the Almighty. They are not sent to earth on errands or assignments. They do not patrol the borders between good and evil. They exist for one purpose alone, to be in the presence of ultimate holiness and to respond to that presence with perfect praise. Their position is unique. In most descriptions of angelic hierarchies, the seraphim are placed closest to God, not just physically, but in terms of spiritual intimacy. They see the face of God directly, without veils or barriers. They experience the full intensity of divine love and holiness without being overwhelmed. This closeness comes with its own challenges. To be in the immediate presence of perfect holiness requires perfect purity. The seraphim must be creatures of absolute righteousness, beings without shadow or stain. Their fire burns away any impurity, leaving only what is worthy to stand before the throne. Other angels might marvel at God's works in creation. They might wonder at his plans for humanity. They might struggle to understand divine purposes. But the seraphim know God directly. They see his heart, his love, his perfect character. Their worship comes not from duty or fear, but from intimate knowledge of infinite beauty. Their form reflects their function. Where cherubim have 4 wings for protection and movement, seraphim have 6, 2 to cover their faces in humility before perfect holiness, 2 to cover their feet in modesty before infinite purity, 2 to fly in service and worship. Even their song is unique. Other angels might declare God's mighty works or announce his messages. The seraphim sing of his essential nature, holy, holy, holy. Not what God does, but who God is. Not his actions, but his character. Not his power, but his purity. They are the angels of the inner circle, the beings who know God most intimately and love him most perfectly. They represent the heart of heaven's worship, the core of creation's response to divine beauty. In their song, all other praise finds its source. In their fire, all other devotion finds its fuel. The first fires. Before the first star learned to shine, before the first planet began its dance around a distant sun, there was light, pure light, flowing from the source of all existence. And in that light, according to ancient writings, the first fires were kindled. The creation of the seraphim exists in the realm of holy mystery. Scripture does not tell us exactly when these burning ones came into being, but Jewish tradition, passed down through generations of rabbis and mystics, offers glimpses into those first moments when fire took on consciousness and wings. Some ancient texts suggest the seraphim were among the very first created beings. Born from the breath of the Almighty, they emerged as living flames when God first spoke light into existence. Let there be light, and there was light. But this light was not merely illumination. It was life, consciousness, worship given form. Picture that first moment. Darkness covers the face of the deep. The Spirit of God moves over the waters. Then the voice that will one day shake mountains speaks a single word of power. Light explodes into being, not as rays or waves, but as living creatures of pure radiance. The seraphim emerge from this primal light like dancers from music. They are not created separately, but kindle into existence as the natural response of pure light to the divine presence. Where perfect holiness meets perfect love, flames of worship spontaneously ignite. Other traditions place their creation even earlier. In the eternal realm before time, when God dwelt alone in infinite glory, these burning ones may have existed as expressions of divine joy. Not created beings, but eternal aspects of God's own nature given independent existence. Flames that leap from the divine fire without diminishing the source. The mystical text known as First Enoch speaks of angels created on the first day, before the material universe took shape. These would be beings of pure spirit, unencumbered by physical form. The seraphim might number among these first created, brought into being when God decided to share his glory with conscious creatures capable of appreciating its beauty. Jewish mysticism speaks of different levels of reality: the world of action, where we live; the world of formation, where angels dwell; the world of creation, where pure spirits exist; and the world of emanation, where the divine attributes themselves take on consciousness. The seraphim might exist at this highest level, so close to God that they are almost aspects of divinity itself. There is poetry in their origins, fire calling to fire, light recognizing light, the divine nature expressing itself in creatures capable of perfect worship. The seraphim represent what happens when infinite love decides to create beings capable of loving in return. Their first song may have been the music that shaped the cosmos. As they burst into worshipful flame, their voices could have provided the harmonies that guided the formation of galaxies. The rhythm of their wing beats might have set the pulse that still governs the dance of planets around their stars. Consider the implications. If the seraphim were among the first created beings, they have witnessed everything that followed: the formation of the material universe, the creation of other angels, the making of humanity, the fall, and the promise of redemption. They have sung their holy song through it all, their worship providing the soundtrack for the entire drama of existence. Yet their focus has never wavered. While other created beings turned their attention to the unfolding cosmos, the seraphim kept their eyes fixed on the source. They chose to remain in the immediate presence of their Creator, finding in that relationship everything they could ever need or want. Their fire burns just as brightly now as it did in those first moments. Time does not diminish their passion. Eternity does not bore them. They are as eager to worship today as they were when they first opened their eyes and saw the face of perfect love smiling back at them. Six wings and singing flames, Isaiah sees them clearly. Each seraph has 6 wings, arranged in perfect symmetry. But these wings serve different purposes than the wings of earthly birds. These are wings of worship, designed for service in the throne room of heaven. 2 wings cover their faces. Even beings of pure fire cannot look directly upon the unveiled glory of God. This is not weakness, but wisdom, not inability, but humility. They choose to veil their sight before the one whose brightness makes the sun seem like a dying ember. There is profound beauty in this covering. These beings who burn with inner light, who are themselves flames of living worship, recognize something greater than themselves. They acknowledge mystery that surpasses even their purified understanding. They bow before majesty that exceeds their capacity to comprehend. 2 wings cover their feet. In ancient culture, feet represent our earthly nature, our connection to dust and common things. Even though the seraphim are beings of pure spirit, they maintain modesty before infinite holiness. They cover what is lower, what is less than perfect, what might distract from pure worship. This covering speaks to their character: power without arrogance, strength without presumption. They are mighty beings who could command galaxies, yet they approach their Creator with the humility of children coming before a beloved parent. The final 2 wings are for flight, but this is not the labored flight of earthly creatures struggling against gravity. This is the effortless movement of beings who exist in perfect harmony with their environment. They float and dance and glide through the throne room like flames flickering in gentle wind. Their movement is worship itself. Every turn, every swoop, every graceful arc through the holy smoke becomes an offering of praise. They do not simply fly, they dance. They do not simply move, they celebrate through motion, turning their very existence into a continuous act of adoration. But it is their voices that truly set them apart. When seraphim sing, creation itself pays attention. Their voices carry the resonance of pure truth, the harmony of absolute love, the power of unshakable faith. Each note is perfect, each word precisely chosen, each phrase crafted with divine inspiration. They sing antiphonally, one group calling to another across the throne room. Holy, sings the first choir, and the word echoes through infinite space. Holy, responds the second, and the sound builds upon itself. Holy, they sing together, and the very foundations of heaven tremble with the power of their united voice. This is the Trisagion, the threefold holy, not mere repetition, but deepening understanding. Each holy reveals another aspect of divine nature. Holy in essence, holy in action, holy in relationship to all that has been made. The seraphim understand what they sing. Their worship flows from intimate knowledge of the one they praise. Their song never ceases. Day and night, if such terms have meaning in eternity, their voices rise in perfect praise. They do not grow tired. They do not run out of words. Each moment brings fresh revelation of divine beauty, and each revelation demands new songs of worship. The flames that comprise their being flicker in rhythm with their music. They are living instruments, creatures whose very existence produces worship. Their fire burns brighter with each note, their light pulsing in harmony with their song. They are both the musicians and the music, the worshipers and the worship itself. Other beings in heaven join their song, but none with the same intensity or intimacy. The seraphim set the key, establish the rhythm, provide the foundation upon which all heavenly worship builds. They are the worship leaders of eternity, the choir directors of paradise. Their singing shapes the atmosphere of heaven itself. Where their voices sound, peace descends. Where their harmonies blend, joy erupts. Where their worship rises, the very air becomes thick with the presence of divine love. They create the environment in which all other heavenly activities take place. Isaiah's calling. The smoke clears slightly, and Isaiah realizes something has changed. The singing continues, but now one of the burning ones moves toward him. This is not the distant observation he has been maintaining. This is personal encounter, direct interaction with a being of living flame. Fear grips the young prophet's heart. Not the fear of physical danger, but something deeper. The fear of exposure, of being seen truly and completely by eyes that burn with divine fire. Isaiah suddenly understands his own condition in the light of perfect holiness. Woe is me, he cries out. The words tear from his throat like a confession that can no longer be contained. I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. My eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. This is not false humility or manufactured shame. This is the natural response of anything finite encountering the infinite, anything impure touching perfect purity. Isaiah sees himself clearly for the first time, and the sight overwhelms him, not because he is worse than other men, but because he is human in the presence of the divine. The seraph approaches without fear or hesitation. In its hand it carries a coal from the altar. But this is no ordinary ember. This coal burns with the same fire that comprises the seraph's being. It glows with purifying flame, with the power to transform whatever it touches. Using tongues, the seraph lifts the coal. Even beings of fire handle this sacred flame with reverence and care. The coal represents something precious beyond measure, not destruction, but purification, not punishment, but preparation, not ending, but beginning. The burning one touches the coal to Isaiah's lips. The same lips that just confessed their uncleanness now experience divine fire. But instead of being consumed, Isaiah is transformed. The coal burns away what is impure, leaving behind what is clean and holy. See, the seraph declares, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away and your sin atoned for. The voice carries absolute authority, complete certainty. This is not wishful thinking or gentle encouragement. This is divine proclamation, the declaration of spiritual reality accomplished through sacred fire. The transformation is immediate and complete. Isaiah feels the change throughout his entire being. The crushing weight of unworthiness lifts. The paralyzing fear of exposure melts away. Where there was shame, now there is freedom. Where there was guilt, now there is grace. This is what the seraphim do. They carry the fire that purifies. They bring the flame that transforms. They serve as agents of divine cleansing, preparing vessels for sacred use. Their role extends beyond worship to include preparation, beyond praise to encompass purification. Then comes the call. The voice of the Lord himself fills the throne room. Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? It is not a question born of uncertainty. It is an invitation to partnership, a request for willing participation in divine purpose. Isaiah's response comes without hesitation. The fear is gone. The shame has been burned away. What remains is eager willingness, grateful readiness to serve the one who has shown such mercy. Here am I. Send me. The coal that touched his lips has done more than cleanse. It has ignited something within the prophet. The same fire that burns in the seraphim now kindles in Isaiah's heart, not with the same intensity or purity, but with the same essential nature. He has been touched by heaven's flame and will never be the same. The vision begins to fade, but its impact remains. Isaiah has been transformed by encounter with the burning ones. He has experienced their fire and survived. More than survived, he has been purified, called, and commissioned. The seraphim have done their work, and a prophet has been born. The song of Holy, 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 3 times they sing it. Holy, 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 not twice, which might suggest emphasis, not 4 times, which could imply completeness. 3 times, and in that repetition lies profound mystery. The number 3 appears throughout Scripture as a sign of divine perfection. The Trinity itself reflects this sacred number. Past, present, and future find their unity in 3. Beginning, middle, and end form the structure of all stories. And here, in the throne room of heaven, the seraphim sing their threefold praise. Each holy carries its own weight, its own meaning. The first acknowledges God's transcendence, his complete separation from anything common or profane. This is holiness as otherness, the recognition that divine nature exceeds all human categories and understanding. The second holy celebrates God's purity, his absolute freedom from anything false or corrupt. This is holiness as perfection, the acknowledgement that in God there is no shadow, no inconsistency, no mixture of good and evil. He is light, and in him is no darkness at all. The third holy proclaims God's glory, filling all creation. This is holiness as presence, the truth that divine majesty permeates everything that exists. Nothing can hide from his glory. Nothing can escape his influence. The whole earth, the entire universe, reflects his splendor. But the song does not end with the threefold holy. The seraphim continue, "The Lord of hosts is holy." They name the one they worship. Not some abstract concept of holiness, but the personal God who commands armies of angels, who rules over all powers and authorities, who exercises sovereign control over every aspect of existence. The whole earth is full of his glory. This line completes their worship and extends its reach. What they experience in the throne room is not confined to heaven. The glory they witness blazes throughout creation. Every sunset reflects it. Every star declares it, every flower displays it, every heartbeat echoes it. This song predates all human hymns. Before Moses sang at the Red Sea, before David penned his psalms, before Mary magnified the Lord, the seraphim were singing this ancient refrain. It is the original worship song, the first hymn, the melody that set the rhythm for all praise that followed. The Trisagion, as it came to be known, found its way into human worship. The prophet heard it and remembered it. The vision ended, but the song remained, echoing in his memory and flowing from his pen onto sacred parchment. From there, it entered the stream of human devotion. Christian liturgy embraced this angelic hymn. Generation after generation of believers have joined their voices to the song of the seraphim. In great cathedrals and humble chapels, in languages both ancient and modern, the threefold holy continues to ring out. When Christians gather for communion, they sing with angels and archangels and all the company of heaven. They echo the song that never ends, adding human voices to the choir that surrounds the throne. For a moment, earth and heaven unite in common praise. The Eastern churches made the Trisagion central to their worship. Holy God, holy mighty, holy immortal, have mercy on us. They expanded the seraphim's song while maintaining its essential character. Holiness remains the theme, but mercy enters as humanity's desperate need. Jewish tradition also preserved this song. In the Kedusha, congregations rise to sing along with the angels. They join the heavenly worship, recognizing their place in the cosmic choir that praises the Holy One of Israel. The earthly synagogue becomes an echo of the heavenly throne room. Musicians throughout history have tried to capture the essence of this celestial song. Bach crafted Holy, 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 Holy into his masses. Handel wove it through his oratorios. Contemporary composers still attempt to translate angelic worship into human music. Yet something always remains beyond their reach. Perhaps that is as it should be. The song of the seraphim exists on a plane above human artistry. It carries the weight of perfect holiness, the power of unending worship, the beauty of intimate knowledge of divine character. Human voices can echo it, but only heaven can truly sing it. Still, the invitation remains. Join your voice to the song that shook Isaiah. Add your worship to the praise that fills the throne room. Let your heart burn with the same fire that kindles the seraphim's devotion. Holy, holy, holy. Let it be your song as well. Fire and purification. Fire transforms everything it touches. It separates pure from impure, valuable from worthless, essential from expendable. The ancients understood this better than we do today. They built their temples around sacred flames and offered their sacrifices through purifying fire. The seraphim embody this transformative power. They are not merely creatures who happen to be made of fire. They are fire itself given consciousness and purpose. Their very presence purifies. Their touch cleanses. Their breath burns away everything that cannot withstand the test of perfect holiness. Consider the coal that touched Isaiah's lips. It came from the altar, that sacred place where offerings were consumed and transformed. But this was no ordinary altar fire. This flame burned with the same intensity as the seraphim themselves. It carried their purifying power, their ability to cleanse without destroying what is precious. The coal did not silence Isaiah's voice. Instead, it purified his speech. The lips that had confessed uncleanness became instruments of divine proclamation. The mouth that had spoken common words was prepared to carry sacred messages. Fire had done what only fire can do. It had separated what was holy from what was not. This is the mystery of divine purification. It does not destroy the person. It destroys what opposes the person's highest good. It burns away sheer shame, guilt, and inadequacy. It leaves behind courage, dignity, forgiveness, and purpose. The fire of the seraphim is surgical in its precision, removing only what hinders and preserving what blesses. Ancient metallurgy provides a perfect picture. When gold ore comes from the earth, it is mixed with dirt, rock, and base metals. The raw material has value, but that value is hidden and compromised. Only intense heat can separate the precious from the worthless. The refiner builds his fire hot enough to melt the gold, but not so hot as to vaporize it. As the ore melts, the impurities rise to the surface where they can be skimmed away. The process continues until the refiner can see his own reflection in the molten gold. Only then is the purification complete. The seraphim serve as refiners of the human soul. Their fire melts away everything that obscures the image of God within us. Pride, selfishness, fear, and rebellion rise to the surface where divine grace can remove them. The process continues until God can see his own reflection in the purified heart. Other ancient traditions understood fire's purifying power. The Zoroastrians maintained sacred flames that burned continuously for centuries. They saw fire as the presence of their god Ahura Mazda, the power that separated truth from falsehood, light from darkness, good from evil. Greek philosophers spoke of a cosmic fire that would eventually consume the universe, burning away everything imperfect and leaving only what was pure and eternal. The Stoics believed this purifying fire was both judgment and mercy, destruction and renewal combined in one divine process. Even today, we use fire metaphors to describe transformation. We speak of the fire of affliction that purifies character. We describe passionate love as burning with desire. We talk about fiery trials that test our faith and reveal our true nature. The language persists because the reality endures. The seraphim represent this purifying fire in its most perfect form. They burn with love rather than anger, with desire for holiness rather than destruction of enemies. Their fire attracts rather than repels, invites rather than threatens, transforms rather than consumes. This is why Isaiah could survive their touch. The coal that should have burned his lips instead purified his speech. The fire that should have destroyed him instead prepared him for service. In the presence of perfect love, even perfect fire becomes an instrument of blessing rather than judgment. The purification they offer is both instantaneous and ongoing. In one moment, Isaiah was cleansed and commissioned. Yet the effect of that cleansing would work itself out through years of prophetic ministry. The fire had done its initial work, but its influence would continue throughout the prophet's entire life. Guardians of glory. The seraphim do not guard in the way we typically understand guarding. They carry no weapons. They build no walls. They post no sentries at the gates of heaven. Instead, they guard through their very presence, their worship, their burning devotion to the one they surround. Their 6 wings tell the story of their guardianship. 2 wings cover their faces, shielding even themselves from the full intensity of divine glory. This is not about protection in the military sense. This is about reverence, about maintaining the mystery and majesty that surround the throne of God. Think of it this way. Some things are too sacred to be exposed carelessly. Some truths are too profound to be grasped lightly. Some beauty is too intense to be viewed casually. The seraphim understand this. Their covered faces acknowledge that even perfect beings approach ultimate reality with humility and awe. They are veilers of glory rather than revealers of secrets. Their presence does not expose divine mysteries to unworthy eyes. Instead, it maintains the proper atmosphere of reverence and wonder that should surround any encounter with the holy. They create space for worship by preserving space for mystery. Consider what happened when Moses came down from Mount Sinai. His face shone with reflected glory from his encounter with God, and the people could not look upon him. He had to veil his face to make interaction possible. The seraphim serve a similar function on a cosmic scale. They filter the intensity of divine presence so that other beings can approach the throne. Not by diminishing God's glory, but by creating the proper context for encountering it. Their worship provides the soundtrack, their reverence sets the tone, their humility demonstrates the appropriate response. This guardianship extends to protecting the worship itself. The throne room of God is not a place for casual conversation or distracted attention. It is the center of all reality, the source of all existence, the heart of infinite love. The seraphim maintain the atmosphere where such truth can be experienced and celebrated. Their continuous song serves as both invitation and instruction. Holy, 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 this is who we worship. The whole earth is full of his glory. This is the scope of his majesty. Join the song, but understand what you are singing. Add your voice, but let it be shaped by reverence and truth. They guard against presumption, against the temptation to treat sacred things as common, against the human tendency to reduce mystery to manageable categories. Their presence reminds all other beings that they stand before the source of everything that exists. Yet their guardianship is not forbidding. They do not drive away or intimidate. Instead, they invite deeper worship, more profound reverence, and a greater appreciation for the one they serve. Their fire draws rather than repels, warms rather than burns, illuminates rather than blinds. They guard the glory by embodying it themselves. Each seraph is a living flame of worship, a creature whose entire existence proclaims the beauty and majesty of God. They protect divine glory by reflecting it perfectly, by demonstrating what it looks like when a created being responds appropriately to uncreated love. In this way, they serve as both guardians and models. They show other creatures how to approach the throne, how to worship with proper reverence, how to maintain both intimacy and awe in the presence of infinite holiness. They guard by example rather than by force. Their guardianship is also protective of the worshipers themselves. They create an environment where encounter with God brings transformation rather than destruction, blessing rather than judgment, life rather than death. Under their watchful care, beings like Isaiah can experience divine fire and emerge purified rather than consumed. They understand something crucial about divine glory. It is not meant to be hidden forever. It fills the whole earth. It seeks expression through willing hearts and transformed lives. But it must be approached properly, with reverence and humility and genuine desire for holiness. The seraphim guard this process. They ensure that encounters with divine glory produce worship rather than presumption, transformation rather than mere information, devotion rather than casual curiosity. They are the guardians of proper relationship between creator and creation. Jewish mysticism and the seraphim. Deep in the writings of Jewish mystics, the seraphim appear as figures of profound mystery. These were not academic theologians working in comfortable libraries. These were men who fasted and prayed and sought visions of the divine chariot, the Merkabah that Ezekiel saw by the river Shabar. The Merkabah mystics pushed beyond ordinary religious experience. They wanted to see what the prophets saw, to ascend in spirit to the heavenly throne room, to witness for themselves the worship that surrounds the seat of divine power. Their writings preserve fragments of these extraordinary spiritual journeys. In their visions, the seraphim appear as beings of terrible beauty and overwhelming power. They stand closest to the throne, so near the source of all light that they themselves become living flames. The mystics describe them as creatures whose very existence is worship, whose every breath is praise. These visionaries understood something important about the nature of mystical experience. Not everyone is meant to see what Isaiah saw. Not every seeker can withstand the intensity of direct encounter with divine holiness. The Merkabah mystics spoke of ascending through 7 heavens, each requiring greater purification than the last. Only those who had undergone extensive preparation could hope to reach the 7th heaven, where the seraphim sing their endless song. The mystics prescribed years of study, prayer, fasting, and moral purification before attempting such a journey. They knew that unprepared minds could be shattered by visions too powerful for human comprehension. The seraphim, in these mystical writings, serve as both guides and tests for the ascending soul. Their fire reveals the true spiritual condition of any being who approaches the throne. Those who are pure enough can withstand their blazing presence. Those who still carry impurities find themselves gently but firmly turned away, sent back to earth for further preparation. These ancient mystics developed elaborate descriptions of the heavenly hierarchy. They mapped out the relationships between different orders of angels, the protocols of heavenly worship, the geography of the celestial realms. In all these systems, the seraphim occupied the highest rank, the position closest to ultimate reality. Some writings describe encounters with individual seraphim. These beings are portrayed as teachers of divine secrets, revealers of hidden truths about the nature of God and creation. But they teach only those who have proven themselves worthy through years of spiritual discipline and moral purification. The mystics also wrote about the transformation that occurs when a human soul encounters the seraphim directly. The fire that comprises their being awakens a corresponding flame within the prepared heart. The seeker does not become a seraph, but does become capable of joining their worship, adding human voice to the angelic choir. This transformation is described as both beautiful and terrifying. Beautiful because it represents the soul's return to its original purpose, its designed destiny to worship and commune with the divine. Terrifying because it requires the burning away of everything that has defined the person's earthly identity. The Merkaba mystics spoke of this as a kind of death and rebirth. The person who encounters the seraphim dies to their old way of being and is reborn as a creature of worship. They retain their individuality but lose their selfishness. They keep their personality but abandon their pride. These writings influenced later Jewish thought in profound ways. The Kabbalah, that intricate system of Jewish mysticism, incorporated many themes from the Merkaba tradition. The seraphim appear in Kabbalistic texts as mediators of divine light, beings who receive the pure radiance of God and transmit it in forms that lower beings can absorb. In the Zohar, the central text of Kabbalah, the seraphim are associated with the divine attribute of chesed, or loving kindness. They embody God's desire to share his goodness with creation, his willingness to extend blessing and grace to all who can receive it. Their fire is the fire of love, burning with desire to bless rather than to judge. The mystical tradition also preserved stories of rabbis and sages who claimed to have encountered the seraphim in visions or dreams. These accounts, whether literal or symbolic, conveyed important truths about the nature of divine encounter and the transformation it produces in human lives. What emerges from these mystical writings is a picture of the seraphim as bridges between the human and divine realms. They are creatures who understand both the infinite holiness of God and the finite limitations of created beings. They know how to mediate between these two realities, helping prepared souls approach the throne without being consumed. Their role in Jewish mysticism extends beyond mere worship to include guidance, teaching, and transformation. They are not distant figures to be admired from afar, but active participants in the spiritual journey of those who seek deeper communion with the divine. Enoch and the angelic hierarchies. The Book of Enoch opens doorways into angelic realms that canonical scripture only hints at. This ancient text, revered by some early Christians and preserved in Ethiopian tradition, offers detailed maps of heavenly hierarchies and angelic orders. Yet when it comes to the seraphim, Enoch's visions fall strangely silent. Enoch describes his journeys through multiple heavens, encounters with archangels, and visions of God's throne. He names numerous classes of angels, watchers, Grigori, cherubim, and others. He provides intricate details about their roles, their appearances, their relationships to each other and to humanity. But the seraphim remain largely absent from his accounts. This silence speaks volumes. Either Enoch was not granted access to the innermost circle where the seraphim dwell, or these beings exist at a level of reality that transcends even visionary experience. Perhaps they are so closely identified with the divine presence itself that they cannot be distinguished as separate entities by those who approach the throne. When Enoch does mention beings of fire surrounding God's throne, he describes them in general terms: creatures of flame who worship continuously, beings whose voices shake the foundations of heaven. But he does not name them as seraphim, does not provide the detailed descriptions he offers for other angelic orders. This absence becomes even more significant when we consider Enoch's role as revealer of heavenly secrets. He is given knowledge that other humans cannot possess, shown realities that exist beyond ordinary perception. Yet the seraphim remain veiled even from his extraordinary vision. The Book of Enoch does establish important precedents for understanding angelic hierarchies. It shows that heaven is organized according to precise order, with different beings serving different functions in the cosmic scheme. Some angels are messengers, others are warriors, still others are guardians of natural forces. This systematic approach to angelology influenced later Jewish and Christian thought. The idea that angels exist in ranked orders, each with specific duties and spheres of authority, became standard doctrine. The seraphim, when they do appear in later writings, fit naturally into these hierarchical systems as the highest rank, closest to God. Enoch's visions also emphasize the transformative power of direct divine encounter. When he approaches God's throne, he is changed fundamentally. His human nature is purified and elevated. He becomes capable of receiving knowledge and bearing revelations that would destroy an unprepared mind. This theme of transformation through divine encounter parallels Isaiah's experience with the seraphim. In both cases, proximity to divine holiness requires and produces fundamental change in the one who approaches. The fire that purifies is also the fire that enables, burning away what hinders and strengthening what serves. The Book of Enoch describes elaborate protocols for heavenly worship. Angels have assigned positions, specific roles in the cosmic liturgy, precise words to speak and songs to sing. This organized worship reflects the order and beauty of divine nature itself. Chaos cannot exist in the presence of perfect harmony. Within this cosmic worship, the seraphim would naturally hold the central position. Even if Enoch cannot describe them directly, their influence permeates the worship he witnesses. The songs he hears echo the holy, holy, holy that Isaiah recorded. The fire he sees reflects the blazing devotion of the burning ones. Enoch's silence about the seraphim may also reflect their unique nature. Other angels have missions that take them throughout creation. They interact with humans, influence earthly events, carry out divine commands in the material realm. The seraphim remain focused entirely on worship, entirely present to the immediate reality of God's presence. This focus makes them less visible to visionaries concerned with cosmic events and earthly affairs. Enoch seeks understanding of how heaven relates to earth, how divine purposes work themselves out in human history. The seraphim exist above these concerns, absorbed entirely in the reality of divine beauty and holiness. Later Jewish and Christian writers would build upon Enoch's foundation while filling in what his visions left unsaid. They would place the seraphim at the pinnacle of angelic hierarchies, the beings who know God most intimately and serve him most perfectly. Enoch's silence would be interpreted not as ignorance, but as reverence before mystery, too profound for description. The absence of the seraphim from Enoch's detailed angelic catalogs ultimately testifies to their transcendent nature. They exist so close to the source of all being that they merge with the divine light itself. They burn so brightly with reflected glory that they become almost invisible, like stars that fade in the brilliance of the rising sun. Christian theology and the choirs of angels. In the 5th century, a mysterious writer known as Dionysius the Areopagite crafted a vision of heavenly hierarchy that would shape Christian understanding for over 1,000 years. His treatise, The Celestial Hierarchy, organized all angels into 9 choirs arranged in 3 triads, each reflecting different aspects of divine nature. At the summit of this cosmic order, Dionysius placed the seraphim, not merely as the highest-ranking angels, but as being so close to God that they exist in a state of perpetual burning love. They represent the soul's ultimate destiny, the complete absorption in divine beauty that awaits all who are purified by grace. Dionysius understood the seraphim as creatures of pure contemplation. While other angels might be sent on missions or assigned to govern aspects of creation, the seraphim remain focused entirely on the immediate reality of God's presence. Their whole existence is worship, their entire being a song of love. This contemplative focus made them models for Christian mystics seeking deeper communion with God. The monastic tradition especially embraced the seraphim as examples of what human devotion could become when purified by divine fire. Monks and nuns sought to imitate their continuous praise, their undivided attention to divine beauty. The threefold holy of their song took on Trinitarian significance in Christian interpretation. The first, holy for the Father, source of all being. The second for the Son, revealer of divine love. the third for the Spirit, sanctifier of souls. The Seraphim's worship became a model for Christian understanding of God's triune nature. Medieval theologians developed elaborate theories about how the Seraphim's fire relates to divine love. Thomas Aquinas wrote about their burning charity, their love so intense it becomes their very substance. They do not merely feel love for God, they are love for God made manifest in angelic form. This identification of the seraphim with perfect love influenced Christian spirituality in profound ways. Mystics spoke of being seraphically illuminated, of having their hearts set on fire with divine love. The goal of Christian spiritual life became participation in the seraphim's burning devotion. The Franciscan tradition particularly embraced seraphic imagery. Francis of Assisi received the stigmata from a seraphic vision, marking his body with the wounds of Christ. His followers saw this as a sign that human love could become so intense, so pure, that it participated in the very nature of the seraphim. Bonaventure, the great Franciscan theologian, wrote extensively about seraphic love as the highest form of Christian spirituality. He described a mystical journey that culminates in seraphic transport, a state where the soul burns with such love for God that it transcends ordinary human consciousness. Christian art embraced the seraphim as symbols of divine love of and purification. They appeared in frescoes and mosaics, usually depicted as beings of fire with 6 wings, often holding burning coals that represent the purifying power of divine grace. Their presence in art served to remind viewers of love's transformative power. The liturgical tradition incorporated seraphic worship into Christian services. The Sanctus, Holy, Holy, Holy Lord God of Hosts, became a central element in the Mass. Christians joined their voices to the angelic choir, participating in the worship that surrounds the throne of God. Eastern Christianity developed its own rich tradition of seraphic theology. The Orthodox churches emphasized the seraphim's role in the divine liturgy, seeing earthly worship as an echo of the heavenly song. Icons of the seraphim adorned church walls, their fiery wings and burning faces serving as windows into celestial reality. The hesychast tradition of Orthodox mysticism sought direct experience of the divine light that the seraphim see continuously. Through prayer and contemplation, these mystics hope to share in the vision that transforms the burning ones into creatures of pure worship. Protestant reformers maintained belief in angelic hierarchies while emphasizing the accessibility of divine grace. They saw the seraphim's purification of Isaiah as a model for how God cleanses and calls human hearts. The coal that touched the prophet's lips became a symbol of grace freely offered to all who approach God in faith. Modern Christian theology continues to find meaning in seraphic imagery. Liberation theologians speak of the fire that burns for justice. Contemplatives write about the love that consumes selfishness and pride. Evangelicals preach about the cleansing fire that prepares hearts for service. Through all these developments, the essential nature of the seraphim remains constant. They are creatures of perfect love, beings whose entire existence is worship, flames that burn with desire for divine beauty. They represent what creation looks like when it responds perfectly to the love of its creator. Their song continues to echo through Christian worship. Their fire continues to kindle human hearts. Their example continues to inspire those who seek deeper communion with the God they serve so perfectly. In their burning devotion, Christians see both the goal of spiritual life and the grace that makes such transformation possible. The burning presence fire speaks a language older than words. It dances without music, rises without wings, transforms everything it touches. When we try to understand the seraphim, we must learn to think like flame itself. These beings are not merely surrounded by fire. They are fire, living fire that burns with consciousness and will. Imagine fire that never consumes its fuel, a flame that burns brighter each moment yet never grows smaller. This divine fire creates rather than destroys. It purifies rather than reduces to ash. The seraphim embody this sacred paradox, burning eternally while remaining eternally whole. Human fire needs fuel. Wood becomes ash, wax becomes smoke. Oil feeds the lamp until the vessel empties. But divine fire feeds on itself, growing stronger through its own burning. The seraphim burn with love, and love never depletes itself by loving. Rather, it multiplies, spreads, ignites new flames wherever it touches. Their fire represents passion in its purest form, not the passion that seeks and grasps, but the passion that gives and surrenders. They burn with longing for God, a desire so intense it becomes their very substance. Every part of their being yearns toward the divine like flames reaching upward. This fire also symbolizes illumination. Fire has always been humanity's teacher, showing us truth in darkness, revealing shapes hidden by shadow. The seraphim burn with perfect knowledge of divine nature. Their fire is understanding itself, wisdom that burns away ignorance and fills the mind with light. Ancient peoples saw fire as the element that connected earth to sky. Flames always rise, always reach toward heaven. Fire seems to belong partially to our world and partially to realms beyond. The seraphim embody this connection, existing at the boundary between created and creator, finite and infinite. Their burning never harms. When Isaiah encountered their coal, it cleansed rather than scarred. This divine fire burns away impurity while leaving the essential self untouched. It destroys only what separates us from our true nature. Like a furnace that removes dross from gold, the seraphim's fire reveals the precious metal hidden within ordinary souls. Fire demands attention. A flame in darkness draws every eye. The seraphim's burning presence makes them impossible to ignore. They command focus not through force but through beauty. Their fire attracts like a beacon, calling all creation to recognize divine glory. This fire also represents transformation. Nothing remains unchanged after encountering flame. Wood becomes light and heat. Clay becomes pottery. Metal becomes tool. The seraphim transform everything they touch, not by changing its nature, but by revealing its highest potential. They help creation become more itself, more perfectly what it was meant to be. Fire spreads. One flame lights another without losing its own brightness. The seraphim's fire kindles similar burning in other beings. Angels who encounter them catch their devotion. Humans who glimpse them find their hearts set ablaze with divine love. This fire wants to share itself, to fill all creation with sacred flame. Their burning also represents urgency. Fire moves quickly, spreads rapidly, demands immediate response. The seraphim's passion admits no delay, no hesitation. They burn with the urgency of perfect love, the impatience of desire that cannot wait to unite with its beloved. Yet this same fire brings peace. A hearth fire creates safety, warmth, the comfort of home. The seraphim's burning presence makes heaven feel like the ultimate home, the place where all souls can finally rest. Their fire doesn't agitate but soothes, doesn't disturb but heals. Fire has always been a gift from heaven to earth. Prometheus stole it from the gods. Moses saw it in the burning bush. The disciples received it at Pentecost. The seraphim are this gift personified, divine fire taking conscious form, heaven's flame made into living beings who share their burning love with all creation. In their fire, we see what divine love looks like when it takes visible form. Not a gentle warmth, but a blazing passion. Not a calm affection, but an intense longing. The seraphim burn because love itself burns. They are flame because God is fire, and they stand so close to the source that they cannot help but share its nature. Eyes covered, feet hidden 6 wings spread like petals around a flower of fire. Each pair serves its own sacred purpose, creating a pattern of reverence that teaches us how to approach the divine. The seraphim's wings tell a story of humility, service, and proper relationship with the holy. With 2 wings, they cover their faces. Even beings who dwell in God's immediate presence cannot look directly upon divine glory. This detail strikes us as profound. If the seraphim must shield their eyes, how much more overwhelming would such sight be for human vision? Their covered faces show us that some mysteries remain too bright for any created eye. This covering speaks of humility deeper than human understanding. The seraphim possess perfect knowledge of God's nature, yet they maintain the reverence of creatures before their creator. Their hidden faces demonstrate that intimacy with the divine never breeds familiarity. The closer they draw to God, the more aware they become of the infinite distance between creator and creation. These covered eyes also protect them from being consumed by what they see. Divine glory burns with intensity beyond measure. Even beings made of fire must shield themselves from its full radiance. Their covered faces allow them to serve in God's presence without being overwhelmed by the sight that would reduce lesser beings to nothing. With 2 wings, they cover their feet. In ancient cultures, feet represented the most humble, earthly part of the body. They touched dust, carried weight, became dirty through contact with the world. Even though the seraphim dwell in heaven's pure realm, they acknowledge their created nature by hiding these symbols of earthly connection. This covering of feet shows their awareness that they stand on holy ground. Moses removed his sandals before the burning bush. The priests of Israel washed their feet before entering the temple. The seraphim take this reverence further, concealing their feet entirely in the presence of ultimate holiness. Their hidden feet also represent modesty. Despite their exalted position, the seraphim don't display themselves proudly. They remain conscious that their purpose is to direct attention toward God, not toward themselves. Their covered feet ensure that nothing about their appearance distracts from divine glory. With 2 wings, they fly. These wings represent their active service, their ability to carry out divine will throughout creation. While 4 wings express reverence and humility, 2 wings enable action. The seraphim balance contemplation with service, worship with work. Their flight speaks of freedom and joy. They don't serve reluctantly or under compulsion. Their wings carry them eagerly wherever divine love directs. They move with the grace of beings perfectly aligned with their purpose, finding delight in every task that serves the greater glory. These flying wings also represent their role as messengers. Though the seraphim primarily worship in God's immediate presence, they sometimes carry divine fire to other parts of creation. Their wings enable them to bridge the gap between heaven's throne room and the wider cosmos that needs their purifying touch. The symmetry of their wings creates perfect balance, 2 for reverence of what they cannot see, 2 for humility about what they are, 2 for joy in what they do. This balance teaches us that true spiritual life requires all 3 elements: reverence for mystery, humility about our nature, and joy in our service. Medieval theologians saw deep symbolism in these wing arrangements. The covered face represented faith, the willingness to believe without seeing. The covered feet represented hope, the patient acceptance of our current limitations. The flying wings represented love, the active force that moves us toward God and neighbor. The seraphim's wings also create a kind of sacred dance, and as they move in worship, their wings beat in rhythm with celestial music. They become living prayers, their entire bodies expressing devotion through motion. Every flutter and fold speaks praise more eloquent than words. Their wing positions change throughout their service. Sometimes all 6 wings spread wide in moments of intense worship. Sometimes they fold close during periods of quiet contemplation. Sometimes they extend partially as they lean forward to catch every note of divine communication. Their wings respond to the rhythms of heavenly life like instruments played by expert musicians. These wings remind us that approaching the divine requires both reverence and action, both humility and service. We must cover our eyes before mysteries too great for our understanding. We must cover our feet in recognition of our earthly nature, and we must spread our wings in eager service of the love that calls us home. The vision of Revelation. On an island prison called Patmos, an old man named John received visions that shook the foundations of heaven and earth. Among the images that blazed across his inner sight were 4 living creatures around God's throne. These beings bear striking resemblance to our burning seraphim, yet they possess their own distinct mystery. John saw creatures covered with eyes, front and back, inside and out. Eyes that never closed, never missed a detail, never stopped watching over creation with divine vigilance. One creature had the face of a lion, bold and royal. Another bore an eagle's features, keen and soaring. The third showed a human face, wise and compassionate. The fourth appeared as an ox, patient and strong. Each creature had 6 wings, just like the seraphim of Isaiah's vision. These wings moved in constant motion, never resting from their sacred duty. Day and night they sang the same song Isaiah heard. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. The similarity between John's creatures and Isaiah's seraphim has puzzled scholars for centuries. Are they the same beings seen through different eyes? Are they separate orders of angels with similar roles? The text itself offers no clear answer, leaving us to wonder at the connections. Both visions place these creatures in God's immediate presence. Both describe 6-winged beings whose primary purpose is worship. Both record the same threefold song of holiness, yet the differences intrigue us as much as the similarities. John's creatures have faces of earthly beings, connecting heaven's worship to creation's four corners. The lion represents wild creatures. The ox symbolizes domestic animals. The eagle stands for birds of the air. The human face speaks for all rational creation. Together, they voice the praise of every living thing. The seraphim of Isaiah seem more removed from earthly concerns. They appear as pure flame, beings of fire whose connection to our world comes through their cleansing mission rather than their appearance. They represent divine attributes rather than created categories. Perhaps these differences reflect the purposes of each vision. Isaiah needed to understand his calling as a prophet, his mouth cleansed for speaking God's words. The coal from the seraph's hand prepared him for earthly ministry. The fire burned away his unworthiness, fitting him for his task. John received revelation about the end of all things, the final consummation when heaven and earth would unite. His creatures embody this unity, bearing earthly faces while dwelling in heavenly realms. They represent creation's ultimate destiny, the harmony between spirit and flesh, divine and mortal. The eyes covering John's creatures suggest perfect knowledge and awareness. Nothing escapes their notice. They see past, present, and future simultaneously. Their vision encompasses all creation, watching over every sparrow that falls, every tear that drops, every prayer that rises. These eyes also represent God's own watchfulness reflected in created beings. The creatures serve as extensions of divine sight, ensuring that no corner of creation lacks attention and care. Their constant vigilance provides comfort to believers who wonder if their struggles go unnoticed. The four faces speak to creation's diversity and unity. Every type of life finds representation in the throne room. Every creature has a voice in heaven's eternal song. The cosmic choir includes not just angels, but all living beings, from the mightiest lion to the gentlest dove. Some early Christians connected these creatures to the four gospel writers. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John each contributed a different perspective on Christ's life, just as the four creatures offered different aspects of divine glory. The human face represented Matthew's genealogy. The lion symbolized Mark's wilderness preaching. The ox connected to Luke's emphasis on sacrifice. The eagle soared with John's heavenly perspectives. This interpretation suggests that the creatures in John's vision represent not just worship, but revelation itself. They embody the different ways divine truth reaches human understanding. Like the gospel writers, they each contribute unique insights while participating in one unified message. The eternal song they sing connects past, present, and future in a single moment of praise. Who was acknowledges God's eternal existence before creation. Who is recognizes divine presence in the current moment. Who is to come anticipates the fulfillment of all divine promises. Whether these creatures are the same as Isaiah's seraphim or separate beings altogether, they share the essential calling of pointing all attention toward divine glory. They exist not for themselves, but as living mirrors reflecting God's holiness throughout creation. Their song never ends because divine glory never diminishes. Their eyes never close because divine love never sleeps. Medieval wonder. In stone chapels and candlelit scriptoriums, medieval minds tried to capture the uncapturable. Monks bent over parchment with brush and gold, attempting to paintings made of fire. Their efforts gave us windows into heaven, glimpses of how the Middle Ages understood the burning ones who sing around God's throne. These artists faced an impossible task. How do you draw fire that thinks? How do you paint song? How do you show wings that cover divine faces while somehow revealing the beauty they hide? The medieval solution was to embrace mystery while creating beauty that pointed beyond itself. In illuminated manuscripts, seraphim appeared as creatures of impossible color. Red deeper than blood, gold brighter than sunset, white purer than snow. The artists layered pigments to create surfaces that seemed to glow from within. Expensive materials like lapis lazuli and ground pearls mixed with cheaper colors to suggest celestial richness. The wings received special attention in these medieval works. Artists painted them in overlapping feathers of flame, each plume carefully detailed yet flowing together like living fire. Some illuminations showed wings that seemed to move even in their stillness, positioned at angles that suggested motion, frozen for just one moment. Cathedral builders carved seraphim into stone with equal devotion. High above cathedral floors, where only God's eyes could see the details clearly, craftsmen spent months creating perfect feathers, flowing robes, faces filled with holy longing. These stone seraphim often held scrolls inscribed with "Holy, Holy, Holy," their carved mouths open in eternal song. The colors in stained glass offered another way to capture the seraphim's fiery nature. Medieval glaziers created windows where light itself became the medium for revelation. Red glass caught morning sun and threw ruby flames across stone floors. Gold glass transformed afternoon light into pools of liquid fire. When light passed through these colored panes, the entire cathedral interior seemed to burn with gentle flame. Medieval mystics developed their own inner visions of the seraphim. Hildegard of Bingen saw them as living flames that danced around the divine throne. Her writings describe wings that beat in rhythm with cosmic music, voices that harmonized with the movement of planets and stars. For Hildegard, the seraphim were conductors of a celestial orchestra that included all creation. Meister Eckhart spoke of the seraphim as examples of perfect surrender. He taught that these beings had become so united with divine will that they no longer possessed separate desires. Their burning was the fire of ego consumed by divine love. They represented the ultimate goal of mystical experience, complete union with God. The medieval imagination often placed seraphim in throne room scenes that resembled earthly courts. Kings sat surrounded by advisors and courtiers. Similarly, God's throne was attended by ranks of angels, each with specific duties and honors. The seraphim held the highest positions, closest to the divine ruler, trusted with the most intimate service. Book after book depicted these throne room scenes with careful attention to hierarchy and protocol. The seraphim appeared larger than other angels, positioned nearer to the central throne, their wings spread wider, their faces more radiant. Medieval artists understood that size and position communicated importance in ways that transcended earthly rank. Monastery libraries preserved texts that described the seraphim's daily routine, if we can call their timeless existence daily. These writings imagined how the burning ones spent their eternal hours, singing praise, receiving divine illumination, purifying other angels who approached the throne, carrying out special missions to distant parts of creation. Medieval Christians found comfort in these detailed visions. The seraphim represented the perfection they hoped to achieve in heaven. Their constant praise offered a model for earthly worship. Their burning love inspired human hearts to seek greater devotion. Their position near God's throne assured believers that divine love was real, personal, and accessible. The Black Death and other plagues that swept through medieval Europe gave new significance to the seraphim's purifying fire. People longed for cleansing from disease, corruption, and spiritual darkness. The burning ones represented hope that divine fire could burn away all that harmed and diminished human life. Medieval wedding ceremonies sometimes included prayers, asking the seraphim to kindle divine love between husband and wife. Their fire became a symbol for passion that burned without consuming, love that grew stronger through giving rather than taking. These medieval visions of the seraphim influenced Christian imagination for centuries. Even as artistic styles changed and theological emphases shifted, the basic image of six-winged beings burning with divine love remained constant. They had become part of the permanent furniture of Christian heaven, as essential as the throne itself. The flame that does not burn Moses stood before a bush that blazed but was never consumed. The branches crackled with fire that produced no ash, flames that left every leaf intact. This paradox of divine fire appears throughout Scripture, reaching its highest expression in the burning seraphim who serve around God's throne. Divine fire breaks the rules that govern earthly flame. Normal fire destroys what it touches, reducing wood to ash, flesh to bone. But the fire of God creates while it burns, purifies while it preserves, consumes impurity while leaving essence untouched. This is the fire that flows through the seraphim's being. When the coal touched Isaiah's lips, it burned away his sin, but left his humanity intact. The fire removed what separated him from God while strengthening what connected him to divine purpose. His mouth, once unclean, became an instrument for holy speech. The flame transformed rather than destroyed. This divine fire appears again when Elijah called it down from heaven. The altar, the sacrifice, even the water poured around it burst into flames that consumed everything except the stones themselves. The fire distinguished between what belonged to God and what served other purposes. It took only what was offered, while leaving the foundation untouched. The three Hebrew young men walked through Nebuchadnezzar's furnace without even the smell of smoke on their clothes. The flames that should have killed them became their protection. Divine fire surrounded them like a shield, burning away their bonds while leaving their bodies unharmed. They emerged more free than when they entered. At Pentecost, tongues of fire rested on the disciples' heads. These flames didn't burn hair or skin, but ignited hearts and minds with divine love. The fire gave them new languages, new courage, new understanding. They burned with missionary zeal, but were not consumed by their passion. This pattern reveals something essential about divine nature. God's fire doesn't destroy what he created, but removes what prevents creation from fulfilling its purpose. The seraphim burn with this same fire, their entire beings aflame with love that purifies without destroying. Their fire burns away the distance between creature and creator. It consumes the barriers that sin creates while preserving the relationship that love makes possible. They stand so close to God because his fire has removed everything that would create separation. This divine flame also burns away the fear that naturally arises in the presence of perfect holiness. Ordinary fire frightens us because it threatens destruction. Divine fire attracts us because it promises transformation. The seraphim's burning presence draws other beings toward God rather than driving them away. The fire that doesn't consume also represents eternal life. Earthly flames eventually exhaust their fuel and die. Divine fire feeds on itself, growing stronger through its own burning. The seraphim will never burn out because their fire comes from an inexhaustible source. This endless burning also symbolizes endless love. Human love often diminishes through expression, growing weaker as it gives itself away. Divine love multiplies through sharing, becoming stronger as it spreads. The seraphim's fire demonstrates love that increases rather than decreases through constant giving. Their non-consuming fire also reveals the nature of true worship. Many people fear that devotion to God will diminish their humanity, that spiritual passion will burn away their personality and desires. The seraphim prove the opposite. Their fire makes them more themselves, not less. Their burning enhances rather than erases their unique nature. This fire burns away illusion while revealing truth. It consumes the lies we tell ourselves about our independence, our self-sufficiency, our separation from divine love. But it preserves and strengthens everything real within us: our capacity for love, our longing for beauty, our desire for meaning and purpose. The seraphim's fire teaches us that transformation doesn't require destruction. We can change without losing our essential identity. We can grow without abandoning what makes us unique. Divine fire refines like a jeweler's flame, removing impurities while revealing the precious metal beneath. This flame that doesn't consume offers hope for our own spiritual journey. We need not fear that drawing closer to God will burn away what we value most about ourselves. Instead, divine fire will reveal and strengthen our truest nature, burning away only what prevents us from becoming who we were meant to be. The burning bush, the coal from the altar, the fire on the disciples' heads, the seraphim's wings aflame all point to the same truth. Divine love burns with intensity beyond imagination, but its burning brings life rather than death, transformation rather than destruction, union rather than separations of glory. The seraphim serve as living curtains around the throne of God. Their wings create a barrier not to keep others out, but to keep divine glory from overwhelming creation. They are guardians of an intensity too great for unprepared eyes, protectors of a beauty that could blind the unpurified heart. This role as guardians differs from the work of cherubim who block the way to Eden with flaming swords. The cherubim say, "Stop," to those who would approach unworthily. The seraphim say, "Wait," to those who need preparation before approaching the source of all light. They guard not through exclusion, but through gradual revelation. Their 6 wings serve this protective purpose. 2 wings cover their own faces, showing that even they cannot look directly upon divine glory without some protection. 4 wings extend outward, creating a gentle screen that filters divine radiance. They allow glimpses of glory while preventing the full brightness from escaping uncontrolled. This veiling serves love, not secrecy. A parent shields a child's eyes from light too bright for young vision. A doctor gradually increases light exposure to heal eyes damaged by darkness. The seraphim perform similar service for creation, revealing divine glory at intensities that heal rather than harm. They understand that unmediated contact with divine presence would destroy rather than bless unprepared souls, not because God wishes to harm, but because finite beings cannot contain infinite reality without proper preparation. The seraphim serve as buffers, transformers that step down divine voltage to levels creation can receive. Their position around the throne creates a graduated revelation of glory. The closest ring experiences divine presence most directly. Each successive ring receives glory filtered through the beings closer to the center. This arrangement allows all creation to participate in divine worship without being overwhelmed by intensities beyond their capacity. The seraphim also guard against presumption. They remind all other beings that approach to the divine requires proper preparation and attitude. Their constant worship demonstrates the only appropriate response to perfect holiness. Their covered faces show that familiarity with God never breeds casualness. Their protective role extends beyond the throne room. When they carry divine fire to other parts of creation, they measure out precisely the amount each situation requires. Too little fire fails to accomplish divine purposes. Too much fire destroys what it was meant to bless. The seraphim calibrate their missions with perfect precision. Isaiah's experience illustrates this careful protection. The prophet couldn't approach God with unclean lips. The seraphim brought him just enough purifying fire to remove his impurity without harming his humanity. The coal burned away his sin while preserving his ability to speak divine truth. This guardian role also involves protecting divine mystery. Some aspects of God's nature remain hidden, not from unwillingness to reveal, but from love that knows when revelation would harm rather than help. The seraphim preserve these mysteries like treasures kept safe until the proper time for their unveiling. They guard against spiritual pride as well. Their constant humility reminds all observers that creatures remain creatures regardless of how close they draw to divine presence. Even beings who dwell in God's immediate presence cover their faces and feet in acknowledgement of their created status. The seraphim's protection takes the form of gradual initiation. They reveal divine glory step by step, degree by degree, allowing souls to adjust and grow at each level before proceeding to the next. This process might take ages of human time, but divine love never rushes spiritual development. Their wings also guard against spiritual overwhelm. Many mystics throughout history have reported experiences of divine presence so intense they feared for their sanity or life. The seraphim's veiling prevents such overwhelming encounters, doling out spiritual experience in doses the soul can integrate and understand. They serve as living reminders that the goal of spiritual life is not to grasp or possess divine reality, but to be grasped and possessed by it. Their covered faces show that some encounters with God involve receiving rather than seeing, being transformed rather than understanding. The seraphim guard the throne room atmosphere as well. Their constant praise creates an environment where divine presence can be revealed safely. Their worship generates the proper context for revelation, like tuning forks that establish the correct pitch for a cosmic choir. Their protective service demonstrates that true spirituality involves shielding others from harm rather than exposing them to experiences they cannot handle. They exercise power through restraint, showing strength through gentleness, revealing glory through careful concealment. These guardians of glory remind us that spiritual progress requires patience and preparation. We cannot rush into divine presence any more than we can stare directly into the sun. But like the dawn that gradually brightens the sky, the seraphim help divine light increase slowly until our eyes adjust to see clearly the beauty that has always been shining. Jewish mysticism and the seraphim. In hidden chambers and whispered traditions, Jewish mystics climbed ladders of light toward the divine throne. They called their practice Merkabah mysticism, the study of God's chariot throne, described in Ezekiel's visions. These seekers of divine mysteries encountered the seraphim in realms beyond ordinary understanding. The Merkabah texts describe dangerous journeys through 7 heavenly halls. Each hall required special knowledge, sacred names, protective amulets. Angels guarded every threshold, testing travelers with riddles and challenges. Only the most prepared and worthy could reach the final hall, where the throne blazed with impossible light. These mystical explorers wrote of beings they met in the upper realms. Angels with names like thunder spoke in voices that shook the foundations of reality. Creatures of living fire danced attendance around the divine presence. Among these beings, the seraphim appeared as the highest servants, the final guardians before the throne itself. Rabbi Ishmael, one of the great Merkabah mystics, described ascending through the heavenly halls in his spiritual body while his physical form remained on earth. In the 7th hall, he saw the seraphim surrounding the throne like a wall of living flame. Their wings created barriers of fire that rose and fell in rhythm with divine breathing. The mystics understood that encountering the seraphim required perfect purity of heart and mind. These beings could detect the slightest impurity, the smallest trace of selfish motive. They served as final examiners, testing souls before allowing them to approach the divine presence. In the mystical text called 3 Enoch, the seraphim appear as beings of such intensity that their very presence transforms other angels. Lesser beings who draw too near catch fire themselves, burning with reflected glory. The text describes their voices as so powerful that when they speak, flames shoot from their mouths and light pours from their eyes. The mystics developed elaborate meditation practices designed to prepare souls for such encounters. They spent years purifying their thoughts, disciplining their desires, memorizing sacred names and formulas. The journey to the throne room was not for the casual seeker, but for those willing to risk everything for a glimpse of divine glory. These texts describe the seraphim's role in the cosmic order. They stand at the junction between the created and uncreated, serving as bridges between the finite and infinite. Their burning represents the transformation that occurs when creature meets creator. They embody the price and privilege of divine intimacy. The Merkabah mystics also wrote of the seraphim songs, describing melodies that existed before creation and would continue after the universe returned to its source. These songs carried creative power, their harmonies maintaining the structure of reality itself. To hear them was to understand the musical mathematics that held all existence together. Some mystics reported that the seraphim could appear in human form when divine mercy required it. They told stories of mysterious strangers who appeared at crucial moments, bringing guidance or protection, then vanishing like flames extinguished by wind. These encounters suggested that the burning ones sometimes descended from their lofty station to serve divine purposes on earth. The tradition also preserved warnings about the dangers of seeking the seraphim unprepared. Stories told of mystics who attempted the ascent without proper preparation, only to be consumed by fires they could not endure. Their fate served as cautionary tales, reminding others that divine encounter required more than curiosity or ambition. Jewish mysticism taught that the seraphim possessed perfect knowledge of divine nature, yet remained eternally hungry for more. Their burning represented not satisfaction, but endless longing, desire that grew stronger through fulfillment rather than weaker. They embodied the paradox of divine love. The closer one draws to God, the more distant the infinite appears. The mystics also connected the seraphim to the Shekinah, the divine presence that dwelt among the people of Israel. They taught that the seraphim served as escorts for the Shekinah when it descended to earth, surrounding divine presence with protective fire wherever it chose to dwell. These mystical traditions influenced Jewish prayer and practice for centuries. The Kedusha, the holiness prayer recited in synagogue services, echoes the seraphim song of Holy, Holy, Holy. When Jews pray these words, they join their voices to the cosmic chorus that never ceases its praise. The seraphim also appeared in Jewish legends about the Messianic age. These stories described a time when the barriers between heaven and earth would thin, when the burning ones would descend to purify the world with divine fire. Their flames would burn away all that corrupted creation, leaving only beauty and truth. Medieval Jewish philosophers like Maimonides approached the seraphim through reason rather than mystical experience. They understood these beings as representations of divine attributes rather than literal creatures. For them, the seraphim symbolized the pure intellects that contemplated divine truth without distraction or error. The Kabbalists who followed developed even more elaborate theories about the seraphim's place in the cosmic order. They connected the burning ones to the Sephirot, the divine emanations that bridged the gap between God's hidden essence and manifest creation. Each seraph embodied different aspects of divine love flowing into the world. These mystical traditions remind us that the seraphim exist beyond the reach of ordinary consciousness. They dwell in realms accessible only to souls prepared through years of spiritual discipline and divine grace. Their fire burns in dimensions of reality that transcend physical space and linear time. The Jewish mystics' encounter with the seraphim transformed their understanding of divine love. They learned that God's love burns with intensity beyond imagination, that divine presence consumes everything false while preserving everything true. The seraphim became their teachers in the school of sacred fire, showing them what it means to burn with perfect devotion. Falling stars. In the depths of heaven's mystery lies a question that has haunted theologians for centuries. If angels can fall from grace, if beings created for glory can choose rebellion, what of the seraphim? Could any of these burning ones have joined the great rebellion that cast a third of heaven's host into darkness? The scriptures remain silent on this specific question. We know that Satan fell like lightning from heaven, taking countless angels with him. We know that pride preceded his fall, that he desired to be like God rather than serve God. But were any seraphim among those who chose rebellion over worship? The question carries weight because of the seraphim's exalted position. They stand closest to the divine throne, burning with the purest love, singing the holiest songs. If creatures so close to perfection could fall, what hope remains for any created being? Their potential fall would represent the ultimate tragedy of free will corrupted. Some ancient texts hint at the possibility. The Book of Enoch describes the fall of the Watchers, angels who left their proper domain to mingle with humanity. But these were not seraphim. They belonged to orders of angels assigned to watch over earthly affairs. The burning ones dwelt too close to God's throne to be distracted by earthly beauty. Yet the question persists. Could pride have infected even the highest angels? Could a seraph have looked upon its own burning beauty and forgotten that its fire came from God? Could one of these perfect worshipers have desired to receive worship rather than offer it? The very nature of the seraphim makes such rebellion seem impossible. They burn with love so pure that selfish desire cannot survive in their presence. They exist in constant awareness of their created status, their wings covering their faces and feet in perpetual humility. Their entire being focuses on God's glory rather than their own magnificence. If any seraphim had fallen, the cosmic order would have felt the shockwaves. These beings possess power beyond human comprehension. Their rebellion would have torn holes in reality itself. Heaven would have trembled at the sight of perfect love transformed into perfect hatred. Some theologians suggest that the seraphim's very perfection protected them from temptation. Their closeness to divine love made them immune to the lies that corrupted other angels. They saw too clearly, loved too purely, burned too brightly to be deceived by illusions of independence or superiority. Others argue that the possibility of fall remained real for all created beings, including the seraphim. They suggest that these burning ones chose loyalty to God moment by moment, their faithfulness representing not inevitable programming but freely given devotion. Their continued service testified to the triumph of love or pride. The question also touches on the nature of divine justice. If God knew that some angels would fall, why create them at all? If the seraphim could have fallen but didn't, what made them different from those who chose rebellion? These mysteries remind us that divine wisdom operates beyond human understanding. Perhaps the seraphim's immunity to fall comes from their complete absorption in divine love. Beings who exist in perfect union with God's will cannot conceive of alternatives. Their fire burns away all possibility of selfish thought before it can take root. They remain faithful, not through struggle, but through perfect harmony. The fallen angels chose to turn away from divine light, preferring the shadows of their own making. But the seraphim face the source of all light directly. Their covered faces protect them from being overwhelmed, not from being tempted. They cannot turn away from what they cannot help but see. Their constant song of "Holy, holy, holy" might serve as protection against pride. By continually acknowledging God's unique holiness, they remind themselves of their created status. Their worship becomes a wall against the temptation to seek worship for themselves. If we imagine a fallen seraph, we might picture a being of terrible beauty, fire turned to destruction rather than purification. Such a creature would possess all the power of divine love, but none of its goodness. It would burn with hatred, as intense as its former love, consuming rather than creating. But this remains speculation. The scriptures suggest that Satan, the highest of the fallen angels, was likely a cherub rather than a seraph. His rebellion seemed to stem from his role as guardian and protector, positions that could foster pride in one's own importance. The seraphim's role as worshipers offers fewer opportunities for such temptation. The question of fallen seraphim ultimately points us back to the mystery of free will and divine sovereignty. How can beings be truly free yet certain to choose good? How can love be real if it cannot be refused? These questions exceed our capacity to answer, leaving us to trust in divine wisdom beyond our understanding. Whether or not any seraphim fell, their continuing faithfulness offers hope. These beings prove that created nature can achieve perfect harmony with divine will. Their burning love demonstrates that the highest joy comes not from asserting independence, but from perfect union with the source of all goodness. In the end, the seraphim who remain faithful serve as living proof that love conquers all. Their flames burn brighter than any darkness. Their songs drown out all discord. Their presence transforms rebellion into worship. They show us what we were created to become, beings so filled with divine love that falling becomes impossible, not because we cannot choose otherwise, but because we cannot imagine wanting to. The voice that shakes the temple. Picture a voice so pure it moves stone. Isaiah stood in the temple, and when the seraphim sang, the very foundations trembled. Not from volume, but from holiness itself. Ancient Hebrew tells us the doorposts moved. The thresholds shook. These weren't delicate whispers floating through sacred halls. The seraphim's voices carried weight that mortal ears could barely receive. Think of thunder rolling across mountains, but this sound held more than power. It carried the essence of divine truth. Each note vibrated with perfect harmony. Each word resonated with absolute purity. The temple Isaiah knew was built of massive stones. Cedar beams stretched across its ceiling. Yet when celestial voices rose in worship, even these solid foundations responded. Matter itself acknowledged the sacred. Sound becomes force when it carries the divine. The seraphim don't simply make noise. Their voices shape reality around them. Where they sing, heaven touches earth in ways that physical creation must acknowledge. Consider how a tuning fork makes nearby strings vibrate. The seraphim's song works similarly, but with spiritual frequencies. Their worship awakens responses in everything around them. Stone, wood, metal, all creation joins their eternal hymn in its own way. Isaiah felt this vibration in his bones. The sound entered through his ears but traveled deeper. It reached places in his soul he didn't know existed. The voice that shook the temple also shook the prophet's heart. Ancient Jewish teachers spoke of divine speech as creative force. When God spoke, worlds came into being. The seraphim, closest to this source, carry echoes of that same creative power in their voices. Their song doesn't just fill space, it transforms it. Where they worship, ordinary places become holy ground. The very air grows thick with presence. Light seems to bend differently, colors appear more vivid. The shaking wasn't destruction, it was recognition. Creation itself bowed before the sound of perfect praise. The temple stones acknowledged what they hosted. The doorposts honored what they heard. Think of a great cathedral organ filling vast spaces with music, but multiply that effect beyond the physical. The seraphim's voices penetrate dimensions we can't see. They sing to audiences we can't imagine. Isaiah witnessed sound as sacred force. He saw how heaven's worship affects earth's foundations. This vision taught him that praise isn't passive. True worship moves mountains, shakes temples, and transforms hearts. The prophet learned that the divine encounters always involve trembling. not from fear alone, but from the overwhelming reality of holiness meeting humanity. When infinite touches finite, everything must respond. Modern physics shows us how sound creates patterns in matter. Sand arranges itself into shapes when exposed to different frequencies. The Seraphim's song arranges reality itself according to heaven's perfect patterns. Their voices carry authority because they originate so close to the source of all authority. Each note reflects divine character. Every word expresses absolute truth. The sound itself becomes a form of revelation. Isaiah's shaking temple reminds us that encounters with the divine change everything. Nothing remains the same after heaven touches earth. The very ground beneath our feet responds to holiness. The Seraphim song continues even now. Somewhere beyond our hearing, their voices still shake foundations. They still call creation to recognize its maker. They still demonstrate how worship becomes a force that transforms worlds. Kabbalistic fire. Jewish mystics discovered fire everywhere in their sacred texts. Not ordinary flames, but spiritual energy that burns without consuming. The Seraphim fit perfectly into this mystical landscape of divine illumination. Kabbalah teaches that God emanates through 10 sephirot, divine attributes that flow like light through creation. Each sephira glows with its own sacred fire. The highest ones burn brightest, closest to the infinite source. The Seraphim dwell near these elevated realms. Their burning nature mirrors the intense light of the upper sephirot. They embody the fire that purifies, illuminates, and transforms without destroying. Medieval Kabbalists spoke of divine names that carry tremendous power. Each letter blazes with hidden meaning. When spoken correctly, these names release spiritual fire that can reshape reality itself. Picture the Seraphim as living embodiments of these sacred names. Their very beings spell out divine truths in letters of flame. They don't just know God's names, they are extensions of those names made manifest. The tree of life maps divine emanation from highest to lowest. At its crown sits Keter, the divine will beyond human understanding. The Seraphim hover near this ultimate source, bathed in light too bright for lower creation to perceive directly. Their 6 wings correspond to different sephirot. The wings that cover their faces reflect Chokhmah, divine wisdom too brilliant for direct sight. The wings over their feet represent Malkut, divine presence in the material world. The wings for flying express Tiferet, perfect harmony and beauty. Kabbalistic fire doesn't burn like earthly flames. It reveals instead of destroying. Where it touches, truth emerges. Hidden meanings surface. The soul awakens to its divine origin and destiny. The Seraphim's purifying coal becomes even more meaningful through this lens. They offer not just cleansing, but revelation. The fire they carry burns away illusion and reveals the divine spark within every soul. Jewish mystics taught that creation happened through divine speech. But behind the words lay fire, the passionate love that drives God to create and sustain worlds. The Seraphim embody this creative fire in its purest form. Their endless song of Holy, Holy, Holy resonates through all 10 sephirot. Each repetition ignites another level of divine emanation. Their worship feeds the flow of light that keeps all creation alive. Think of a master jeweler working with precious gems. The Seraphim function similarly with souls, using divine fire to cut away everything false and reveal the perfect diamond within. Kabbalah describes different types of divine fire. Some burns obstacles. Others illuminates truth. Still others transforms the ordinary into the sacred. The Seraphim work with all these fires according to divine will. Their presence near God's throne represents the ultimate mystical achievement, union with the divine without losing individual identity. They show how created beings can burn with divine fire while remaining distinct persons. The mystical tradition sees the Seraphim as teachers for advanced souls. Those who reach high levels of spiritual development might encounter these beings in deep meditation or prophetic vision. Their fire calls to the divine spark within every human heart. That inner flame recognizes its source when touched by seraphic fire. The coal that cleansed Isaiah's lips burns within every soul, waiting to be kindled. Kabbalistic Seraphim don't stand apart from creation. They weave through it like golden threads, carrying divine fire to every corner of existence. Where they pass, ordinary matter remembers its sacred origin. Seraphim in the celestial temple. Above our world stands another temple, built not of stone, but of pure light. Here the seraphim serve as eternal ministers, tending fires that never dim and singing songs that never end. Ezekiel's visions gave glimpses of this heavenly sanctuary. Its walls shimmer with glory beyond description. Its foundations rest on crystalline seas. Its chambers echo with continuous worship offered by countless angelic choirs. The seraphim hold positions of highest honor in this celestial court. They stand closest to the divine throne, their wings creating canopies of reverence. Their voices lead all other angels in perfect harmony. Picture a great cathedral where every surface reflects light perfectly. Multiply that radiance infinitely. The heavenly temple outshines every earthly sanctuary ever built. Its glory makes the finest human architecture seem like children's blocks. Ancient Jewish writings describe this temple's many chambers. Each room serves specific purposes in the divine administration of creation. The seraphim move freely through these sacred spaces, carrying out missions beyond human understanding. Their 6 wings make them perfect temple servants. With 2 wings, they veil their faces in reverence before the divine presence. With 2 others, they cover their feet in humility. The remaining pair allows them to fly swiftly on heavenly errands. The celestial temple operates continuously. No Sabbaths pause its worship. No festivals interrupt its rhythm. The seraphim's voices rise in constant praise, creating a sacred atmosphere that sustains all creation. Think of musicians in a great orchestra. Each plays their part perfectly, contributing to a symphony greater than any individual performance. The seraphim function similarly among heaven's countless worshippers. Their fire serves practical purposes in this sacred space. It illuminates areas too holy for ordinary light. It purifies offerings brought before the divine throne. It kindles other angels' lamps when they serve in lower chambers. The temple's altar burns with seraphic fire. No earthly flame could survive in such holy atmosphere. Only fire that originates from divine love itself can burn continuously in God's immediate presence. Jewish mystics taught that earthly temples were copies of this heavenly original. Every detail of Solomon's temple reflected something in the celestial sanctuary. The seraphim's earthly appearances help prophets understand their true roles above. Their song provides the temple's background music. Other angels join in during specific ceremonies, but the seraphim's voices never stop. They offer the continuous bass note around which all other worship harmonizes. The celestial temple has no walls that exclude, yet it maintains perfect order through the seraphim's ministrations. They direct spiritual traffic, ensuring that every soul approaches the divine presence appropriately. Picture sunlight streaming through stained glass windows. The seraphim function like living windows in the heavenly temple, allowing divine light to shine through them in beautiful patterns that illuminate lower creation. Their fire creates the temple's warmth. Not heat that burns flesh, but spiritual warmth that comforts souls and encourages growth. Pilgrims who approach this sanctuary feel welcomed by the gentle radiance of seraphic love. The temple's incense consists of prayers offered by souls throughout creation. The seraphim tend these aromatic offerings, ensuring they reach the divine nostrils as pleasing fragrances. They serve as the temple's choir directors, leading billions of voices in perfect unity. Under their guidance, chaos becomes harmony. Discord resolves into peace. Every note finds its proper place in the eternal song. This celestial temple exists outside normal time and space. The seraphim's service there affects every moment of earthly history simultaneously. Their worship in eternity influences every prayer offered in time. Angels of the East, long before Israel's prophets saw burning seraphim, other cultures knew of fiery divine messengers. Ancient Persia spoke of Amesha Spentus, holy immortals who blazed with pure light around Ahura Mazda's throne. These Persian beings shared remarkable similarities with Hebrew seraphim. Both groups dwelt in divine presence. Both burned with holy fire. Both served as mediators between the infinite and finite realms. Babylonian texts describe the Ijigi, high-ranking gods who lived in heaven's upper levels. They surrounded the chief deity like a court of burning stars. Their presence brought both terror and blessing to mortal observers. Zoroastrian fire temples maintained eternal flames that never went out. Priests tended these sacred fires day and night, believing they connected earth to heaven's blazing glory. The seraphim's eternal burning echoes these ancient practices. Egyptian mythology told of solar barges carrying divine fire across celestial waters. Winged beings with faces like flames guided these vessels through heavenly realms. Their songs powered the sun's daily journey. The Rig Veda describes Agni, the fire god, with multiple faces and countless eyes. He served as messenger between humans and higher deities. His flames purified offerings and carried prayers to divine ears. Ancient Mesopotamian cultures carved winged beings with human faces and animal bodies. These creatures guarded temple entrances and throne rooms. They combined human intelligence with divine power and natural strength. Hindu texts speak of seraphim, celestial beings who burn with devotional fire. They sing continuously in divine presence, their voices creating spiritual harmonies that sustain cosmic order. Buddhist tradition knows the Dharmapala, fierce protectors who use spiritual fire to burn away ignorance and evil. Their terrifying appearance hides compassionate hearts dedicated to helping souls achieve enlightenment. Greek philosophers wrote about celestial hierarchies arranged in perfect order around the One. Each level blazed with increasing intensity as it approached the divine source. The highest beings burned brightest. These cross-cultural parallels suggest universal human intuition about divine messengers. Across continents and centuries, people sense that the highest spiritual beings must burn with holy fire. The Seraphim stand unique among these traditions not in their basic nature, but in their specific role. They don't rule lower creation like many mythological fire beings. Instead, they serve through worship and purification. Their Hebrew name means burning ones, but their fire comes from love rather than wrath. Unlike many ancient fire deities, the Seraphim's flames comfort rather than consume those who approach with proper reverence. Persian influence may have enriched Jewish understanding of angelic hierarchies during the Babylonian exile. Exposure to Zoroastrian fire theology could have helped Isaiah's readers appreciate the Seraphim's burning nature. Yet the biblical seraphim transcend these influences. They embody pure worship rather than cosmic struggle. Their fire serves love rather than justice. Their song creates harmony rather than asserting dominance. Ancient peoples recognized that approaching the divine required purification by fire. The seraphim fulfill this universal need in the most perfect way possible, through loving service rather than fearsome judgment. Their coal touches lips gently, not to punish, but to prepare. Their fire burns away impurity while preserving the essential person. This loving purification sets biblical seraphim apart from their mythological cousins. The convergence of fire imagery across cultures points to deep spiritual truth. Divine love burns like flame, purifying, illuminating, warming, and transforming everything it touches. Eastern and Western traditions meet in the seraphim's gentle fire. They show how divine transcendence and loving immanence unite in beings who burn with perfect devotion. The coal and the calling, one glowing ember, changed everything. The seraph approached Isaiah with tongues, carrying fire from heaven's altar. This wasn't ordinary coal, but concentrated holiness, burning with purifying love. The prophet saw it coming and felt terror. His lips had spoken unclean words. His mouth had harbored impure thoughts. How could such fire touch human flesh without destroying it completely? Yet the coal brought healing, not harm. It seared away sin while preserving the sinner. The burning felt intense but brief. Pain gave way to cleansing. Fear transformed into readiness. Picture a blacksmith's forge where metal becomes malleable under intense heat. The seraphim's coal worked similarly on Isaiah's soul. It softened hardened areas and reshaped him for divine service. The fire came from heaven's altar, where continuous sacrifices burned before God's throne. This wasn't destructive flame, but sanctifying energy. It carried the power to make unholy things holy. Ancient Jewish thought connected this coal to the fire that consumed sacrifices in earthly temples. But this heavenly original burned with greater intensity and purer purpose than any earthly flame could achieve. The seraph used tongues to carry the coal. Even these holy beings required tools when handling such concentrated divine energy. The fire's holiness demanded reverence from every created thing. Isaiah felt the coal's touch on his lips specifically. God had work for the prophet that required clean speech. His mouth needed purification before it could carry divine messages to rebellious people. The coal burned away more than personal sin. It removed the barrier between the prophet and his calling. Before this touch, Isaiah felt unworthy. After it, he volunteered eagerly for God's mission. Think of a radio receiver being tuned to a clear frequency. The coal adjusted Isaiah's spiritual reception. It removed static and interference so divine messages could come through clearly. The burning happened quickly, but its effects lasted forever. One moment of purifying fire prepared the prophet for decades of difficult ministry. Brief pain purchased permanent transformation. Other prophets received different kinds of preparation. Jeremiah felt God's hand touch his mouth with words. Ezekiel ate a scroll containing divine messages. Isaiah's purification came through fire. The seraph's coal demonstrates how God prepares people for service. Divine calling always includes divine enabling. No one serves effectively without first receiving necessary purification and empowerment. The altar fire that touched Isaiah burns continuously in heaven. It remains available for every soul that needs cleansing. The same purifying power that prepared the prophet can transform any willing heart. Picture a master jeweler using precise heat to purify precious metals. The seraphim's coal works with similar precision on human souls. It burns away dross while preserving everything valuable. The coal's heat penetrated beyond Isaiah's lips into his entire being. Physical touch became spiritual transformation. External fire kindled internal flame that would burn throughout his prophetic career. This scene reveals the seraphim's gentle ministry. They could have spoken words of cleansing. Instead, they offered tangible touch. Sometimes divine love expresses itself through concrete actions rather than abstract concepts. The coal bridged the gap between Isaiah's unworthiness and God's calling. It removed every excuse and eliminated every barrier. After such cleansing, the prophet could only say, "Here am I, send me." This purifying fire still burns today. Every soul that approaches God with genuine repentance can receive cleansing that prepares for divine service. The seraphim's coal remains available to touch unclean lips with holy fire. Eternal song. Imagine never growing tired of your favorite melody. The seraphim sing "Holy, Holy, Holy" with fresh passion after countless ages. Their voices never strain. Their joy never dims. Their worship never becomes routine. Eternity operates by different rules than time. What seems like endless repetition to us becomes deepening exploration to them. Each moment reveals new facets of divine glory worth celebrating in song. The seraphim's hymn carries perfect rhythm. No conductor guides their voices because they flow from unified hearts. Their individual notes blend seamlessly into cosmic harmony that sustains all creation. Think of ocean waves that never stop moving. Each wave resembles others yet remains unique. The seraphim's worship flows similarly, continuous yet ever-changing, repetitive yet always fresh. Their song has no beginning because they started before time began. It will have no ending because eternity never concludes. Past, present, and future merge in their eternal now of worship. Human singers need rest between performances. Their voices tire. Their inspiration fades. But the seraphim draw energy from the very act of worship. Singing to God renews rather than depletes them. Picture a spring that never runs dry because it connects to an infinite source. The seraphim's worship springs from inexhaustible divine love. The more they give in song, the more they receive to offer. Their voices create rather than just fill silence. Where they sing, new realities emerge. Their worship doesn't just acknowledge God's holiness, it participates in creating spaces where holiness can dwell. The seraphim discovered the secret of eternal joy. They found purpose so fulfilling that time becomes irrelevant. Their work and their pleasure merge into one continuous celebration. Each repetition of their holy song penetrates deeper into divine mystery. Like spelunkers exploring vast caverns, they discover new chambers of glory with every phrase they sing. Their worship feeds the universe's spiritual ecosystem. Other angels join their song at appointed times. Human prayers harmonize with their eternal melody. All creation benefits from their continuous praise. Think of parents who never tire of hearing their child say, "I love you." Each repetition brings fresh delight. The seraphim understand that God never grows weary of receiving worship from grateful hearts. Their song provides the soundtrack for heaven's activities. Angels work to this rhythm. Souls find peace in these harmonies. Even cosmic forces align themselves with the seraphim's eternal tempo. The melody they sing is simple enough for any created voice to join, yet profound enough to explore forever. Its accessibility invites participation. Its depth prevents boredom. Their worship teaches patience to time-bound creatures. They demonstrate how true love finds infinite satisfaction in serving its beloved. Duty becomes delight when the heart is properly aligned. Picture musicians who love their music so much that performance becomes pure joy. The seraphim experience perpetual concert bliss. They sing because they must, but must because they love to. Their eternal song reminds us that some activities improve with repetition. Practice makes their worship more beautiful. Experience deepens their appreciation. Time increases rather than diminishes their joy. The seraphim's voices will still be singing when the last human prayer fades into silence. Their song will continue beyond the final earthly sunset. Eternity belongs to their endless hymn of praise. They sing not because God needs their worship, but because they need to worship. Their song expresses their truest nature. In praising God, they become most fully themselves. Fire in the desert. Desert fathers fled to barren places seeking divine fire. They found burning bushes in their own hearts when civilization's noise finally faded. The seraphim's flames blazed clearest in these empty, silent spaces. Sand and stone create natural altars where earth meets sky without obstruction. Here, ancient hermits encountered the same purifying fire that touched Isaiah's lips. Desert heat becomes sacred flame for prepared souls. Picture endless dunes under blazing sun. The physical fire above mirrors spiritual fire within. Desert mystics learn to transform external burning into internal illumination through patient surrender and prayer. John the Baptist emerged from wilderness burning with prophetic fire. His words carried desert heat and desert clarity. He prepared others for divine encounters by his own example of desert purification. The seraphim's 6 wings make perfect sense in desert imagery. 2 wings shield against overwhelming divine radiance, like desert dwellers shield their eyes from relentless sun. 2 wings cover feet walking on burning sand. Egyptian monks retreated to desert caves where silence taught them to hear angelic voices. In these hollowed spaces, they claimed to hear the seraphim's eternal song echoing off stone walls. Desert visions often feature fire. Moses saw a burning bush that wasn't consumed. Elijah witnessed fire that devoured water-soaked altars. The desert's harsh beauty reveals divine glory to prepared eyes. Think of how desert nights follow scorching days. Extreme heat gives way to surprising coolness. The seraphim's fire works similarly, intense purification followed by gentle peace. Desert travelers learn to conserve water and energy. Desert mystics learn to conserve spiritual resources for encounters with divine fire. They strip away everything unnecessary to make room for essential communion. The seraphim's coal perfectly suits desert spirituality. It burns hot enough to purify, but doesn't consume beyond necessity. Like desert fire that burns thorns but spares green growth, divine fire destroys only what hinders spiritual life. Ancient desert monasteries maintained prayer schedules that never stopped. Like the seraphim's eternal song, their worship continued day and night. Desert silence amplified their voices until earth joined heaven's choir. Picture a blacksmith's forge in the desert where metal becomes malleable under intense heat. Desert mystics discovered similar spiritual forges where souls become pliable under divine fire's transforming power. The desert's emptiness creates space for divine fullness. Its poverty prepares hearts for spiritual wealth. Its harsh conditions burn away softness that might melt under celestial glory. Seraphic fire burns brightest where human fire burns lowest. Desert fathers learned to bank earthly passions until divine passion could ignite safely. Their emptiness became fuel for heavenly flame. Think of how desert plants store water in preparation for long, dry periods. Desert mystics stored divine encounters to sustain them through spiritual droughts. One moment of seraphic fire could nourish souls for years. The desert's vast horizons mirror eternity's endless expanse. Here, time-bound creatures catch glimpses of timeless realities. The seraphim's eternal song echoes across infinite spiritual landscapes. Desert heat purifies through constant, gentle pressure rather than sudden intensity. The seraphim's purifying work operates similarly, steady, patient transformation rather than violent change. Modern seekers still discover desert fire in barren places. Geographic deserts aren't required. Any space emptied of distraction can become sacred ground where seraphic flames kindle responsive hearts. The desert teaches that fire and emptiness complement each other perfectly. The seraphim's burning nature finds its fullest expression in souls that have been emptied of everything that competes with divine love. The seraph and the poet-writers discovered angels in their ink long before artists painted wings on canvas. Poets found words that burned with seraphic fire, transforming common language into vessels of divine revelation. Dante climbed through celestial spheres, guided by angelic logic. His divine comedy placed seraphim in the highest heaven, closest to the source of all light. Their love moved stars and human hearts with equal power. Picture Dante's pilgrim eyes adjusting to increasing brilliance at each heavenly level. By the time he reached the seraphim's realm, ordinary sight had transformed into spiritual vision that could perceive pure love blazing like living flame. Blake saw angels everywhere, in trees, in children's faces, in ordinary London streets. His seraphim burned with revolutionary fire that challenged social injustice and spiritual complacency. Poetry became prophecy in his inspired hands. Milton's Paradise Lost gave the seraphim dramatic roles in cosmic conflict. They stood loyal when others fell, their faithfulness rewarded with positions closest to the divine throne. Epic poetry captured their unwavering devotion. Think of how great poets transform everyday words into passages that make readers weep or rejoice. The seraphim's influence on human language works similarly, kindling ordinary speech with extraordinary fire. Medieval poets wrote of courtly love with passion borrowed from seraphic devotion. Human romance became metaphor for divine romance. Earthly fire reflected heavenly flame in verses that still move hearts centuries later. The seraph's coal touched more than Isaiah's lips. It touched every poet who found words burning with truth too hot for comfortable handling. Sacred fire passes from age to age through inspired human voices. Sufi poets like Rumi describe divine love in images of burning and consuming fire. Their verses dance with seraphic energy, spinning readers into mystical states where poetry becomes prayer and words dissolve into wordless union. Picture a blacksmith heating metal until it glows white-hot and becomes malleable. Great poets heat language until it glows with inner fire and becomes capable of shaping souls. The seraphim's 6 wings inspired countless poetic images. Wings that cover faces became metaphors for humble reverence. Wings that hide feet symbolized appropriate modesty. Flying wings represented souls soaring toward divine encounter. Christian mystics like John of the Cross wrote dark nights of the soul illuminated by seraphic fire. Their poetry guided others through spiritual deserts toward transforming flames that burned away everything false. Think of how certain poems lodge in memory and resurface at crucial moments, bringing comfort or challenge exactly when needed. The seraphim's influence on human language creates similar effects through inspired writing. Hopkins' sprung rhythm captured something of angelic song's cosmic beat. His poems pulse with energy that mirrors the seraphim's eternal worship. Nature imagery burns with divine fire in his innovative verses. The seraphim's endless song of Holy, Holy, Holy established rhythm for countless hymns and poems. Their triple repetition became template for human worship that still echoes in churches worldwide. Picture a master musician teaching students by demonstration rather than explanation. The seraphim teach human poets by example, showing how language can burn with divine fire without being consumed. Contemporary poets still discover seraphic fire in their work. Whether they recognize its source or not, the same transforming energy that touched Isaiah's lips continues to kindle human words with power beyond their natural capacity. The coal that purifies prophetic speech also sanctifies poetic language. Every writer who discovers words burning with truth receives a touch of the same fire that prepared Isaiah for his difficult calling. Poetry becomes prayer when touched by seraphic fire. Readers find themselves worshiping through verses that carry more than human wisdom. The boundary between literature and liturgy dissolves in flames of inspired language, still singing right now, somewhere beyond the reach of telescopes and beyond the edge of time, 6-winged voices still rise in perfect harmony. The song that Isaiah heard continues without pause, without change, without end. While you read these words, the seraphim sing, Holy, 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 with the same passion they felt at creation's dawn. Their voices haven't grown hoarse from eternal use. Their joy hasn't dimmed from endless repetition. Picture a choir that never needs sheet music because the song flows from their essential nature. The seraphim don't perform their worship, they are their worship, singing and being merged into one continuous expression of love. Centuries pass like moments in their presence. Empires rise and fall while their voices remain constant. Human generations come and go, but the seraphim song provides eternal soundtrack for all earthly changes. Their wings still cover their faces in reverence before divine glory. Their wings still shield their feet in appropriate humility. Their wings still carry them swiftly on missions of mercy and purification. Think of a lighthouse that burns continuously, guiding ships through dangerous waters. The seraphim's worship functions similarly, providing constant spiritual reference point for souls navigating life's complexities. Their fire still burns on heaven's altar. Their coal still waits to touch unclean lips with purifying flame. The same power that transformed Isaiah remains available for every soul willing to receive cleansing. The seraphim's presence makes every moment sacred because they live in eternal now, where all times are present. Past, present, and future converge in their continuous worship. They still shake foundations with voices that carry divine authority. Not earthly buildings, but spiritual structures that need renewal. Their song still transforms hearts that hear it with faith. Picture a great organ whose bass notes provide foundation for all higher melodies. The seraphim's worship underlies every earthly prayer, every human song, every whispered word of faith. Their 6 wings still move in perfect rhythm with their eternal song. Each wing beat marks another moment of perfect devotion. Each gesture expresses love too deep for human understanding. The smoke from their altar still rises in columns of sweet fragrance. This isn't physical smoke, but the visible essence of prayers offered by souls throughout creation. Think of musicians so skilled that their instruments become extensions of their bodies. The seraphim's voices extend their very beings into creation, blessing everything they touch with harmony. Their song still calls other angels to join in worship. Cherubim add their voices at appointed times. Archangels contribute their strength. The entire heavenly host harmonizes with the seraphim's eternal melody. They still serve as living flames around the divine throne, their very presence creating atmosphere of holiness that makes all worship possible. Without their continual burning, heaven's altar would grow cold. Picture a great symphony that began before the first measure of time and will continue beyond the final note of history. The seraphim provide this cosmic music's most essential themes. Their worship still stains creation's spiritual ecosystem. Like trees producing oxygen for physical life, the seraphim generate spiritual atmosphere necessary for all souls to breathe freely. The same coal that touched Isaiah's lips waits in their hands today. The same transforming fire burns with availability for any heart ready to receive purification and calling. They still demonstrate that true worship never grows old or stale. Each moment offers new opportunities to discover fresh facets of divine glory worth celebrating in song. Their voices still blend in perfect unity while maintaining distinct identity. They show how true community preserves individual uniqueness while creating collective harmony. Drift gently from the fire. The flames grow softer now, like embers settling into peaceful glow. The seraphim's voices fade to whispers as we turn away from their eternal altar. Their song continues, but our ears slowly close to celestial frequencies. Let the images blur gently, 6 wings folding into rest, fire cooling to warm light, voices becoming echoes that comfort rather than overwhelm. The vision dims, but doesn't disappear completely. Think of sunset painting the sky with gentle colors before darkness brings peaceful sleep. The seraphim's presence works similarly, leaving traces of divine light in minds that touch their sacred fire. We've climbed high mountains of mystery and walked through valleys of wonder. Now it's time to descend carefully, carrying treasures discovered in celestial heights. Each step returns us toward familiar ground. The coal that touched Isaiah's lips leaves glowing marks on every soul that encounters seraphic fire. We may not prophesy to nations, but we carry embers of the same transforming flame. Picture a camper banking fires before sleep, covering bright flames with ashes that preserve warmth through the night. The seraphim's fire settles similarly, burning quietly in hearts that received their touch. Their 6 wings wrap around us like blankets woven from starlight and silence. Under this covering, minds that raced with celestial visions slow to peaceful rhythms suitable for rest. The temple's shaking foundation becomes steady ground beneath tired feet. What trembled with holy earthquake now offers solid place to lie down in safety. Divine encounters always end with deeper peace. Think of musicians putting instruments away after a long, beautiful concert. The seraphim don't stop playing, but our ability to hear their music fades as consciousness drifts towards sleep. Their endless song of holy, holy, holy becomes lullaby rather than call to worship. The same words that shake heavenly foundations now rock human hearts toward restful slumber. The smoke from their altar spreads like incense through chambers of memory. Long after the vision ends, the fragrance lingers. Dreams will carry traces of seraphic presence through the night. Picture a great library where scholars study ancient mysteries until weariness overwhelms curiosity. The books remain open, but eyes grow heavy. Knowledge absorbed during waking hours settles into sleeping minds. The seraphim's fire burns lower but never dies completely. Like pilot lights in furnaces, their flame waits patiently to kindle greater fires when souls are ready for more intense encounters. Their wings create gentle breezes that cool foreheads heated by exposure to divine glory. What burned with transforming intensity now soothes with healing touch. Think of parents singing children to sleep with melodies learned in their own childhood. The seraphim's ancient song becomes familiar comfort that eases transition from waking wonder to sleeping peace. The coal's purifying heat becomes warmth that spreads through bodies preparing for rest. Muscles relax, breathing deepens, hearts settle into rhythms that match the seraphim's eternal song. Their presence doesn't abandon us with the vision's end. Like perfume that clings to clothing long after flowers fade, seraphic influence lingers in souls touched by their ministry. Picture morning dew that forms silently during night hours, appearing at dawn as gentle gift from darkness. The seraphim's influence works similarly, blessing sleep with dreams, touched by celestial fire. The six wings fold inward, creating sacred space where human hearts can rest without fear. Under their protection, sleep becomes sanctuary where earth and heaven meet in peace. Their voices join wind that whispers through trees, water that murmurs over stones, and all the gentle sounds that help weary souls drift into restorative rest. The fire settles to glowing warmth. The song becomes silence. The vision fades to dream. But the seraphim remain, singing their eternal hymn, while we rest in the peace their worship creates.